Now with Toon Force it's completely different. Toon Force is limitless on its face. There is nothing that Toons can't do.
Now, what he said about Toon Force isn't actually true at all.
Let me explain why.
Toon Force's power contingent upon something known as humor. Humor is something that people find funny. What people find funny is contingent upon beliefs, feelings, or values. So, this would mean that Toon Force is inherently contingent upon something subjective, which would make it inconsistent and have no objective value. For example, if someone were to find it funny that Bugs Bunny would get roundhouse kicked into the Twin Towers while he's fighting Goku, then that's gonna happen. That's why Toon Force is inconsistent and we can't use it in power scaling. Not to mention, like I said, it's completely subjective, so therefore it can't have an objective value in the first place. So therefore, Toon Force would just be zero-dimensional. And even if I granted you this, that Toon Force would have an objective value, that wouldn't mean that Toons can just do everything willy-nilly, because Toon Force actually has limitations depending on the user of the ability. So even if we ignore everything that I just said about Toon Force is not limitless. Toons aren't omnipotent. There are limits to their powers. They can't just go around like blowing up planets, blowing up universes whenever they want. It's all bounded by limitations. So, therefore, this would actually have to depend on the user, and you would actually have to scale the Toon Force. And even if you try to scale the Toon Force, it wouldn't really matter, because again, Toon Force is zero-dimensional due to the fact that it's completely subjective, and thus can't have an objective value.
And Toons interact with our world.
Another misconception about not even just Toons, but fictional characters in general. No fictional character, and I repeat, no fictional character can interact with our real world. What you're referring to is an interpretation of the real world in their verse. So no, Bugs Bunny can't just come out of the fucking comic panel or something and just punch me in the face. He can't do that. Daffy Duck can't just bust out of the TV and throw a right hook at my left cheek. He can't do that. So no, Toons can't interact with our real world. They just interact with an interpretation of our real world that's in their own verse, which is completely different than interacting with our real life.
But there are levels to it. 90s Toon Force is usually the most powerful. They had no restrictions on how crazy they could make.
Again, this depends on the cartoon, because there are definitely characters in those 90s cartoons that had limitations. For example, Road Rovers, this is a 90s cartoon. They had limitations. They couldn't just go around blowing up planets. They couldn't just stretch their bodies. They couldn't really do anything like that. Even in stuff like DuckTales, their Toon Force is really limited. So no, I don't think 90s Toon Force character, hell, I don't think any cartoon character has limitless amount of Toon Force. As, like I said earlier, this is completely contingent upon what people find funny, as that's how Toon Force functions.
Well, the 2000s Toons kind of tuned it down.
This part ain't even related to the video, but that SpongeBob face kills me every time that I see it. Like, why in the flip-floppity fuck does he look like he's plotting something devious?
But more recently, they've been going back up with shows like Gumball.
No offense, Dre, but this is a really bad example, as Gumball is actually really inconsistent with its Toon Force, which is kind of what I provided proof for earlier. For example, in an episode, Gumball and Darwin are capable of surviving shit like the Big Bang, but in other episodes, they lose fights to average people. Another example of this, Richard Watterson literally nearly destroyed the fucking universe trying to get a job, but in later episodes, he's out here struggling again with average people in fights. Like, average things can hurt him. So, again, that was a really bad example to use, so don't use Gumball. A better example would have probably been something like Regular Show or Adventure Time, and even then, those are really inconsistent.
Now, if I had to say which one would win, it'd be the Toon Force. Like I said, they really have no limits.
For context, this entire video was Midnight Dre comparing gag characters to Toon Force characters, and I would have to say gag characters win 9 times out of 10. Characters like Saitama and Arale actually have consistent feats of their scaling, and would mop, and I mean mop the floor with any Toon Force character. And it'd be worse if you bring in someone like Archie Sonic, who yes, definitely has gag feats, because oh my god, I don't think there's any cartoon character in general that's standing up to motherfucking Archie Sonic. This man is a different breed. But either way, no, Toons are not limitless. They are very limited. They're even subjective, like their power is kind of subjective even, and zero-dimensional. So no, people, Toons are not limitless. Toon Force is not limitless, and it'll never be limitless.